Hi guys, we're here with Christopher Wark with LivefoodDtox, and Chris is the guy who beat cancer, which is pretty phenomenal. And we want to hear all about his story and journey here, so we're just gonna kind of let him go and give us his feedback and everything on his journey.
I'm very excited to
Being
hear
here.
this. Yes.
Well, hey, Angie and Gary, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to tell my story. Anytime I get an opportunity to tell it, I'm usually going to say yes. So I know it took us a while to get this coordinated with schedules, and my life's gotten significantly more crazy in the last few years with, as much exposure as I've gotten. But anyway, yeah, happy to share my story. So I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer when I was 26 years old. And, I was having abdominal pain. I thought I had an ulcer. I was misdiagnosed. And eventually, a gastroenterologist ordered a colonoscopy and an endoscope because he was like, we don't know what's going on. We just need to put a camera in there and look around. So when they did that, they found a golf ball-sized tumor in my large intestine, which is the colon. And they took a biopsy, sent it to the lab, and the next day they called me and said, hey, you've got colon cancer. And so, at the time, being 26, that was the last thing on my radar. It was obviously cancer's a shock at any age, but it was especially shocking for, a young person. With an old person's cancer, right? They don't even start screening for colon cancer until you're in your 50s. So here I was, 26 years old, colon cancer, and of course the first thing they tell me is we've got to get you into surgery right away. We've got to get this thing out of your body before it spreads. And that's what every cancer patient is told. They're rushed into treatment before they have any time to think about their life and their health and maybe what role they had in contributing to their condition. And I don't say that because I think you need to blame yourself, although, it's not a bad idea. I don't want to make anybody feel bad about their situation, like it's all your fault. But the truth is, our diet and lifestyle contribute to many Western diseases. We live in a Western country, we eat a Western diet, and we live a Western lifestyle. When you compare the United States with countries around the world that don't eat the way we eat and don't live the way they live, and they have much lower rates of our number one killers, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, you see there are some obvious differences and changes that it makes sense to make in your own life. So again, I didn't know any of that. All I knew was I had colon cancer, and it was 2 days before Christmas, and they were telling me I needed surgery immediately. So like any typical clueless cancer patient, I was like, okay, doc, like whatever you say. So they I actually had them postpone the surgery till after Christmas because I just didn't want to be in the hospital on Christmas. Cancer was already depressing enough. I just would rather, can we do the surgery after Christmas? So we did it on December 30th. They took out a third of my large intestine. They realized during surgery that it was much worse than they thought. They thought I had stage 2. Surgery revealed that I was stage 3C, which is just one click away from stage 4. Basically, the cancer was on its way to my liver, and the surgeon took out everything he could find. But we know that surgery doesn't cure cancer, especially colon cancer, especially not stage 3, because when you have cancer in your body, when you have a tumor, it's not encapsulated. The cancer is not all in one place. Now, you've got a large congregation of cancer cells in a tumor, but you have circulating tumor cells and circulating stem cells in your whole body. They're in your bloodstream, and they are circulating around looking for new places to set up camp. That's the way cancer works. So, unfortunately, with what happens with surgery, and patients are not told this, but surgery frequently leads to metastasis. Because, when you have a tumor, your body knows about it, your body's trying to control it, you're sick, you have a problem, but again, your body is, trying to deal with the problem. When you go in and you cut yourself open, or let a doctor cut you open and take this tumor out, what they're doing is they're creating a massive injury site in your body that has to be repaired. And so your body's going to produce growth hormones and accelerate healing in that area. But guess what? Those growth hormones accelerate cancer growth. So the remaining cancer stem cells and tumor cells in that area are going to take that fuel and grow And so this is why so many patients have immediate metastasis after surgery, and sometimes even after a biopsy. Sometimes even after a diagnosis with no biopsy, they'll have immediate metastasis. That's because fear suppresses their immune system. They get the cancer diagnosis, the fear overwhelms them. They have this overwhelming stress, fear of cancer, their immune system shuts down, and the cancer starts spreading very quickly. It's amazing, but this is a very common phenomenon, and anyone out there that has had cancer or has watched family members go through it can corroborate what I'm telling you. I mean, this happens over and over again. So fear causes metastasis. Biopsies can cause metastasis because you're poking a tumor, cancer cells are spilling out, and then your body has to heal that little injury site, even though it's a very tiny one from a needle biopsy, but it's secreting growth hormones in that area, and you've got cancer cells spilled out, and of course surgery is even worse. So I didn't know any of that either. Learned a lot in 12 years. I had surgery, they took it out, they told me I'm stage 3C, and they said, look, the next step for you is 9 to 12 months of chemotherapy. And when they told me that, I was in the hospital, I was in the bed, I was on heavy pain medication because they just cut me, right wide open, right through my abdomen, right through my belly button. And so I was trying to recover from that, and the whole thing just felt like a dream because I was so doped up. But I remember even then thinking, gosh, chemotherapy wasn't on my radar either because they were saying, no, you won't need chemotherapy. We can just remove it with surgery and you'll be fine. And so now the conversation's changed, which happens often with cancer patients, to, oh, now you need chemotherapy. So two things happened in the hospital that I find funny and also were red flags to me at the time. It really started the wheels turning. First was the first meal they served me in the hospital. Either one of you know what it is, if you know my story.
Was it mashed potatoes? With gravy?
No, that actually would have been okay, in my opinion, but no, it was a sloppy Joe.
A sloppy Joe.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a sloppy Joe. White burger bun, mystery meat, barbecue sauce, sloppy Joe. The worst, crappiest cafeteria food you can think of is what they served me, the cancer patient who just had a third of his large intestines cut out. First meal. So, they put it in front of me. I'm like, what is this? It didn't even make sense to me. Why they would serve that kind of food in a hospital to sick people. So, I did eat some of it. I was hungry, I hadn't eaten in 2 or 3 days. And, but, again, it just, obviously, I noticed, right? I was thinking, this is not right.
And to think that you are, in that area, uneducated, and they're supposed to be educated in that area.
Right. Yeah. I was largely uneducated in health, although, I have to say my mom's always been a health nut. So my mom always shopped. She loved to shop at little hole-in-the-wall health food stores. And, so growing up, she was the mom that would buy wheat bread instead of white bread. She would buy the peanut butter you had to stir instead of the, Jif or Peter Pan peanut butter, stuff like that. But she still took me to McDonald's and, so she wasn't like hardcore like today's moms by any stretch. But she was definitely into health and read a lot of health books. So, it wasn't foreign to me. And I worked at Wild Oats before they got bought out by Whole Foods when I was in college. So I was around that health food world. So I definitely knew it existed, but I wasn't eating that way. I thought it'd be cool to eat super healthy organic food, but it was expensive, so I never did. And all I was eating was fast food and junk food. So tons of meat and dairy, of course. So the second thing that happened in the hospital was the day I was checking out, the surgeon came in to visit me and do his last round, and I was, a little bit conscientious about going home, and I didn't want to eat the wrong thing and mess anything up because literally, just cut out a section of my guts and then stitched them back together, right? So I said, hey, is there any food I need to avoid? And he said, no, just don't lift anything heavier than a beer.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, so that was the advice. That was it. That was my nutritional advice from my surgeon, abdominal surgeon. And again, I'm like, really? Like, doesn't matter what I eat. Go home and eat whatever I want. Okay. And most patients are told that. Most cancer patients are told by their oncologist, by the surgeon, by any doctor they ask, no, it doesn't matter what you eat. Just make sure you get enough calories, right? Yes, milkshakes, Ensure, cheeseburgers, pizza, just whatever you, just go home and eat whatever you want. They're basically coddling, to cancer patients. They're coddling them, and it's almost like, well, it's hard enough for them to be going through cancer, so let's not deprive them of their favorite foods.
Or educate them at all.
Or educate them. And the truth is that doctors aren't educated on nutrition. I mean, pretty much everyone knows that now. It's become pretty common knowledge that doctors have no nutritional education in med school. So they're trained to do procedures and to prescribe drugs. So I get home and I'm recovering from surgery and I'm thinking about chemotherapy, and the idea of poisoning my way back to health didn't make sense. I'd never had any friends or family that had gone through cancer, so I didn't have a very close connection to it at all. I'd seen a few people out in the world, right, that were obviously cancer patients, and I mean, it's always kind of shocking when you see one, because, especially if they're in late stages, they're bald, their skin's yellow, sometimes they're emaciated, sometimes they're bloated up from all the steroids. But, they just look really, really bad. And I just imagine, I just thought about myself, in that situation, and it was very difficult. It was very difficult to imagine being, a cancer patient undergoing chemotherapy.
And how much information was around for you to, research when you
Yeah, very little. Very little. The internet sucked, okay? Sucked. There was no alternative cancer websites. There's no nutrition for cancer websites. There was no YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Those sites didn't exist. So, I mean, good luck finding anybody on the internet, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't get any help from the internet. My wife and I, so anyway, I'm having these conflicts in my mind, but I don't know what to do. I didn't know, I was interested in alternative therapies, and my mom was bringing me some, she was finding some literature and things and trying to share some information with me, but I didn't have clear direction. And so my wife and I just prayed about it, and I was like, God, if there's another way, just show me, because I don't know what to do. And 2 days later, I got a book that was sent to me from a man in Alaska who I've never met, but he knew my dad. I live in Tennessee. And he sent me this book called God's Way to Ultimate Health. And the subtitle of the book is Eliminating Sickness Through Nutrition, something like that. So I'm like, okay, let's see what this is about. So I start reading the book and immediately knew it was an answer to prayer. The man who wrote it had colon cancer. He had watched his mom suffer and die from conventional cancer treatments. He was a pastor, and he also watched many of his church members over the years be treated with conventional cancer treatments, suffer and die. And then when he was diagnosed with colon cancer, he had a health nut friend who was another pastor who said, hey, you need to get on a raw food diet and start juicing carrots. And so that's what he did. And a year later, he went back and his tumor was gone. No surgery, no chemo, no radiation. So his body healed it. He changed his diet and his lifestyle in a radical, hardcore way, and his body healed. So that was in 1977. Okay, so, and he's still alive. His name's George Malcolmus. I mean, the guy's still alive today. And so anyway, that changed his life, obviously, and he went on to become a health minister, is what he calls himself, and he wrote several books about nutrition and healing, and this was one of them. So as I was reading through it, I was like, this is it. This is exactly what I've been looking for. And I was on the couch just blubbering, right? I was just so thankful and happy that I had this door had opened up for me, because before I just had one path, and now I had an alternate path. So I called my wife and I told her, I was just really excited. I was like, I got this book and I'm going to get on this raw food diet. I'm going to start juicing. And she was like, well, okay, you're still going to do chemo, right? And I'm like, no, I don't think I want to do chemo. I really don't feel good about it, whatever. And then I start getting phone calls from other family members. So word spread very quickly that Chris is thinking about not doing chemo. So people are calling me saying, we heard your thing about not doing chemo, and I just want to encourage you to do what the doctor says. You know, the doctors know best, and these are the best treatments available. I mean, don't you think if there was something better, they would know about it and they would be using it? And at the time, I'm like, I don't know how to answer these questions. I don't know. And that created a lot of stress, a lot of confusion and doubt in my mind, because everyone around me was saying, no, don't do that, right? I got this answer to prayer, but everyone was saying it was wrong. So that's when things got very, very tough mentally for me and emotionally, because I realized I was alone. My mom supported me, but that's my mom, so that's a given. But my wife did not, and she loves me. She didn't. She and a lot of other family members just wanted me to get well. I mean, that's what their intention was. They weren't against me; they were for me, but they were operating on this sort of general public information, that most people think is correct, is just do whatever your doctor says. And by the way, I'm not against doctors. Look, if I break my leg, I'm going to the emergency room. Like, trauma care has never been better. Like, that is where they are, practically working miracles, saving people's lives in emergency situations. But when it comes to chronic disease, the U.S. medical industry, and really worldwide conventional medical industry, is failing, right? Because there's two types of disease. There's acute and there's chronic. Acute would be an infection or it would be an injury. Chronic would be diseases that are caused by diet and lifestyle. Cancer and heart disease primarily, of course, diabetes. So I immediately adopted the raw food diet. I mean, it was just instant. Like, as soon as I read the book, or, it wasn't even all the way through the book. As soon as I figured out what I should eat, what I shouldn't eat, cut out all the processed food, fast food, junk food, meat and dairy, went to straight raw food diet, went straight to Whole Foods, loaded up on vegetables and some fruit and a 25-pound bag of juicing carrots, and bought a juicer, just as fast as I could, and started this raw food diet.
So Chris, sorry to stop you, but did you totally just completely 100% switch, or did you slowly?
100%. Immediate.
Okay.
Yeah. In my mind, there was no time to waste. I wasn't going to ease into it. I wasn't going to transition into it. I was going all the way, like, head first, let's do this. So during that first week, again, I was getting pressure from people around me to go see the oncologist. They were saying, like, will you please go, at least just go meet with them, hear what they have to say. Maybe they have some alternative therapies available, stuff like that. So I'm like, okay. So a week later, we go to the West Clinic, which is in Memphis, and the parking lot's packed, the waiting room's packed. I walk in, it's kind of like the first day. It's kind of like the first day of class, where you walk in and you're looking around, kind of surveying the situation, seeing who's, okay, this is my class, who are the people I'm in here with. And I'm looking around, and everyone there was twice my age, or 3 times my age. I was 26, I was in a waiting room full of 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old people. There were no young adults in there. And I just thought, God, I don't belong here, And so we're sitting on the couch, we're watching the television, waiting for my name to get called. And it's on one of the morning shows, and out comes Jack LaLanne. Jack LaLanne? So Jack LaLanne comes out, and he starts going off on this morning. It was like the Today Show or Good Morning America. Like, I still can't find the clip, but I wish I could. I've tried. But he starts going off about nutrition, about how, the reason we're all so sick is because we're eating this terrible processed, man-made junk food diet, too much meat and dairy, and you need to get back to fruits and vegetables and juicing. And I was just like, I can't believe this is on right now. Like, this is amazing that this is happening while I'm sitting in the cancer clinic on the couch, like, feeling very alone, and I'm getting like this, like, divine message from, through Jack LaLanne, confirmation, confirmation that I was on the right path. So that was a little confidence booster. And I turned to my wife and I was like, hey, can you believe this is on right now? And she was like, yeah, it's pretty weird. So we eventually, you know, after lots of waiting, you know, get to see the oncologist. And oncologists, you know, are like most doctors. They see lots of patients every day. And, you know, if you ran into your doctor, your oncologist in the grocery store, they wouldn't know your name. Like, they're not going to remember your name. And they just see too many people. So, I mean, you know, I know the way it works for these people, right? They're in their little office. They're flipping through the chart. Okay, who's my next patient? His name's Chris. Try to remember that. So what's he got? He's got colon cancer. Okay, Chris, colon cancer. All right, let's go talk to him, right? So then he comes in. He gives me the standard pitch. Basically says, I have a 60% chance of living 5 years with my diagnosis, you know, doing standard treatments, which was FOLFOX, 5-FU, chemotherapy, and leucovorin. What I didn't know at the time was that 5-FU, they've been using it for 50 years. 50 years.
Wow.
They don't have anything, they haven't come up with anything better in 50 years. You know, they try to spin it and say, oh, we've been using this drug a long time, so we know it, you know, we know it works well. Yeah, okay, you've been using it a long time, that's one way to spin it, but the truth is, they haven't come up with anything better in 50 years. So the only thing better they've come up with is if they add leucovorin, it makes it work a little better. So I didn't know that, of course, at the time. So he tells me that, which, again, a 60% chance of living 5 years is not encouraging. I mean, I'm just like, really? That's barely better than a coin toss. We asked him about the raw food diet. My wife brought that up, and he said, no, you can't do that. It'll fight the chemo.
Oh, God, yeah.
Which I thought was weird, and I should have asked him why at the time. I didn't, but I found out later that they think the raw food diet is problematic for cancer patients because they know that chemo destroys your immune system, and so if you eat an apple and there's a little bacteria on it because it's raw, that it could pose a threat to the body because your immune system's destroyed. What we know now is that is actually not a big concern anymore. It used to be decades ago, and now doctors have realized that fruits and vegetables, even if they're raw, are typically safe for cancer patients. So anyway, and the other reason they don't want you to do it is because the raw food diet is such a powerful detoxification diet that your body will kick the chemotherapy out pretty quickly, and it won't do as much damage. So it's protective, right? But what it actually does, it protects your healthy cells, but it weakens cancer cells. So I asked him if there were any alternative therapies available, and at that point in the conversation, his demeanor changed, and he became very arrogant and condescending, and basically said, no, if you don't do chemotherapy, you're insane. And those are the exact words that came out of his mouth. I mean, he just looked me dead in the eye. And then it took me by surprise, and I really, a wave of fear kind of washed over me. And that's what they do. In the cancer industry, they use fear to manipulate you, to motivate you to take immediate action, right? Fear is the most powerful motivator there is, especially fear of death. And so the message in your typical oncology office is, if you don't do what we say, you're going to die. And what they forget to tell and fail to tell most patients is that, oh, by the way, and if you do what we say, you're also probably going to die. Because cancer is the second leading killer of Americans. And in 22 states, it's actually the number one killer now. So it's quickly overtaking heart disease as a leading killer. So most of the conversation from that point, it was a blur because, fear and anxiety just kind of cloud your memory. And I kind of went into the deer in the headlights mode, He was talking to me, he was trying to talk me into doing it, and I was just kind of sitting there like wanting to run out of there. But one thing he said that jumped out that I shook me out of my daze was he said in the middle of a sentence, he's like, look, I'm not telling you this because I need your business. And I was like, whoa, like, hang on. I used to be in sales. That's the sales technique. It's called the push away. And this dude just used the push away on me. He just totally did the push away on me. I know I do the push away, and you don't do the push away to me. So, um, so I was like, this guy's trying to sell me something right now, by telling me he's not trying to tell me something, right? I don't need your business, which translation is him actually admitting, sort of the Freudian slip that he does need my business. And of course, I learned later that up to 2/3 of an oncologist's income comes from the profit on chemotherapy drugs. See, in the medical world, a traditional doctor prescribes a drug, and then the patient goes and buys it somewhere else. So the doctor doesn't make a direct profit on that drug. Now, he does get wined and dined by the drug companies a lot. I mean, they're buying his meals constantly and, flying him to, conferences and exotic locations for, a drug conference, but it's in like the Bahamas, right? Mm-hmm. So, but they don't get direct money for prescribing a drug because that's a conflict of interest, except in the world of oncology, because these clinics buy the drugs direct from the manufacturers and they mark them up and they sell them to you, the patient. Now, your insurance company is going to pay for it. You're going to pay for a percentage of it unless you have full, coverage. But the point is, they make a hefty profit marking up chemo drugs. And, the average chemo drug is like over $100,000 a year now. I mean, these new drugs, and some of them are more than that. So cancer drugs are big business. And without drugs, oncologists would just go out of business. Right? If they were telling their patients to go home and change their diet, why don't you change your diet first? Let's get your life sorted out. Start taking care of yourself, lose weight, and let's see how your body responds. No, they have no incentive to tell a patient to do that. They have every incentive to tell them, start chemo immediately, because as soon as they start chemo, cha-ching, right, the money starts coming in. And once a patient gets on that conveyor belt, it's very difficult to get off. It's almost impossible. Because you get on the chemo train and there's so much, they just keep pumping you full of fear, and patients become so afraid they become too afraid to get off. I hear patients tell me that constantly. They say, I'm afraid to stop chemo. They're literally afraid of what will happen to them if they stop taking a poison, right? So they get in this vicious cycle where they're taking chemotherapy, it's slowing down tumor growth temporarily, but it's also destroying their body. It's causing brain damage, liver damage, lung damage, heart damage, kidney damage. Of course, they lose their hair. It's causing peripheral neuropathy where you lose the feeling in your fingers and toes, sometimes permanently. There's a report recently where some ovarian cancer patients, and other cancers too, have just recently realized that some chemo drugs cause permanent hair loss. Like, there are patients that they lose all their hair and it never comes back. Now, it's a small percentage, but it's a real thing. On the Chris Beat Cancer Facebook page, I shared this news article about it last week. But patients were not told this, and now there's a bunch of lawsuits. And I forget the name of the drug. But anyway, it's a pretty common drug. So, yeah, can you imagine? Your hair falls out, never comes back. Your whole body, you have like permanent alopecia. So there's a host of, just terrible destructive effects in the body that chemotherapy is doing. So patients keep taking it because it shrinks the tumor a little bit, or it slows it down a little bit, but meanwhile it's destroying the rest of their body, right? And so they're too afraid to stop. And meanwhile, the doctor's income goes up and up and up, and their health goes down, spirals down, until they get to the end of the line when the doctor says, we've done all we can do, and there's nothing else we can do for you. And they get dumped off at the end of the conveyor belt, broke, bankrupt, their health's destroyed, they're stage 4 terminal, and they're desperate, right? And some of these people, or many of them, they're on the internet trying to find and talk to me after they've been brutalized by all these therapies. And let me just tell you, it's so much easier to get well before you let them take you all the way down that road. So much easier. for somebody listening, even if you're, halfway down the road, it's so much easier to get well if you take control of your life and your health now. And don't wait till the end where the doctor says we've done all we can do.
So, Chris, I'm sorry. This is this is so close to home for me because my brother-in-law has stage 4 colon cancer, and I didn't even know that was yours. So, it's this is just a hard one for me, but because he doesn't want to hear any of this. I can't. I've tried to put people in front of him, and I'm not trying to steer this away from you. I just wanted to say that it would. What can you say to people at the point where they won't listen to any of it, and they're doing the chemo? And sorry,
Angie, this is what I've learned in 12 years. Sometimes the people you want to help the most are people you can't help.
Sorry.
And that is really tough. It's really tough. Some people are just not open. And I'd say not some is the wrong word. Most cancer patients are not open. And
I'm sorry.
yeah, and I know this is obviously it's very close to home, but that's the sad, most difficult thing. I've had 5 family members diagnosed. My own family since I was. Guess how many have asked me for help? Take a guess.
None. 0.
It's 0. That's correct. 0 have asked me for help. So, and I would give them all the help. I mean, I would give them all my time. I'd give them all my time if they wanted it. And people all over the world are paying me for my time, right? Paying to talk to me, and so much so that I had to stop coaching because I couldn't even keep up with the demand.
Wow.
And yet, the people closest to me don't ask for help. So that is the tough reality. Now, I do want to say this, though. Time changes things, okay? Time changes things. And there may be a point where your brother has a wake-up call, where he has a light bulb moment, and he's like, this isn't working. Like, I'm not doing this anymore, right? And hopefully it's sooner rather than later. And if he has that light bulb, then you can jump in and be a huge help to him, right? I mean, send him to my site. Just the very first video on my site is what every cancer patient needs to know. It's 11 minutes, and it's just like the first thing, what I've learned, first thing every cancer patient should think about. And maybe he'd even watch it now. But again, the people that I can help, it's only a very small percentage of cancer patients. It's the ones that are open, it's the ones that want to get well, the ones that want to change their life, the ones that want to take responsibility for their health, the ones that want to read and research and learn, and the ones that are very suspicious and skeptical of the cancer industry, usually because they've seen it fail people that they know, right? It's usually because they've seen their friends, their family go through treatment, suffer, and die. And they're like, man, there's no way I'm doing that, right? If it ever happens to me, I'm not doing that. So even some of them that say that still end up doing it because there's so much pressure.
Yeah.
There's so much pressure from their loved ones, from their siblings, from their parents, or people around them are all saying, no, you got to do the chemo. You got to do the chemo. We're with you. We'll stick by you. We'll support you. But as soon as you say, no, I'm not going to do that, guess where your support goes? Just flies away, and you're all alone. And that's really, really tough. And so I understand why a lot of people can't go down the road I went down, because it's a lonely, difficult road. And all I had, basically, it was me and Jesus. That's all I had. It's like nobody else. My mom, of course, was a great support, and I did find a naturopathic doctor that was a big supporter of me, and an integrative oncologist that was also an ally. I never went back to the clinic where they told me I was insane. But
Good choice. Good choice.
But it's a tough road, and I mean, it's like this. On one hand, you've got the path that everybody's going down, which is a wide, brightly lit, paved road, right? Everybody's going down that way, and they're all like, come this way. And that road leads to the train station, and they're all getting on the chemo train, and it's comfortable, and all their needs are met, and they're just zipped off, right? But the suffering starts immediately, right? And there's no guarantee that they will be healthy and well and cured at the end of the line. And what it ends up being is that train is on a circular track, right? It doesn't go anywhere. just goes in circles. The other path is a path into the jungle that you can barely see, and you got to hack through alone in the dark. But I knew that was the path that God had illuminated. Like, I knew and I trusted that he opened up that path. He revealed it to me, and that he was going to see me through it. Like, I just had to believe that, right? That was me exercising my faith. Just saying, okay, God, like, you brought this to me. I believe it was from you. I'm going in. Like, you better get me through this, right? Because I don't want to die a fool. Right? I really don't want to die a fool. And everyone say, oh, don't do what Chris did, you know? So anybody watching now is probably like, what did you do? So I went to a 100% raw fruits and vegetables diet, and I made it very simple. Every morning I would juice 5 pounds of carrots. That would yield about 64 ounces. Well, carrots plus I would do beet and celery and ginger root. So it would make about 64 ounces of juice, and I drank that throughout the day. Carrot juice is very powerful against cancer, especially colon cancer. It has tons of beta-carotene, which is converted to vitamin A in your body, which is great for your liver. It is rich in a compound called falcarinol, which is an anti-cancer compound in carrots, also found in a few other vegetables. So I drank tons of carrot juice. I did some juice fasting, where I was just only juice for 10 days. I was eating giant salads. So I took all the most potent anti-cancer vegetables and was eating them twice a day in a giant salad. Like, I was trying to be as efficient and effective as possible. So the salad was spinach, kale, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, onions, mushrooms, peppers, and then I would top it with apple cider vinegar and olive oil, and then spice it up with cayenne pepper, garlic, oregano, Bragg's sprinkle, which is like 30 different spices and, you know, mixed together, and curry powder and turmeric. So it's delicious. I mean, it's a really delicious salad. It's called the Giant Cancer Fighting Salad. Anybody can Google it. They'll find my post about it, or my YouTube video. But I ate that every day for lunch and dinner. Most days, breakfast was just juicing all the way through the morning, and then a giant salad for lunch and dinner. And then I would make fruit smoothies. The most powerful anti-cancer fruits are the berries. So blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, strawberries. And I would get a fresh coconut and a banana, blend up a couple cups of berries and the coconut and banana, and have this delicious smoothie. So I went from eating 1 to 2 servings of fruits and vegetables on a good day to eating between 15 and 20 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. That's a dramatic shift, right? Massive action, radical, hardcore diet change.
How did your body handle that?
It's fine. Felt great.
Okay. Yeah.
Felt great. Now, some people, when they do that, they feel terrible at first because they start detoxifying. And I felt a little not that great the first couple days, low energy and stuff, because your body has to adapt. Because most people are addicted to sugar, caffeine, salt, meat, dairy, and other processed foods, and a high-fat diet. And so when you remove all of those things that their body's accustomed to, that it's adapted to running on and using as fuel, then you're going to have a little bit. You're just shaking up the situation. So you're going to have food withdrawals. So your body has junk food and processed food withdrawals, and sugar and salt and fat and meat withdrawal, and caffeine withdrawals. So all that can make you feel terrible. And then you also may start detoxifying, which makes you feel terrible as well. So anybody doing a radical diet change, you should expect to feel kind of lousy for the first few days. And the problem is that when people try it, they feel bad at first, and then they think, oh, there's no way I can do this. I just need meat or whatever. And the truth is, your body is changing. You just have to see it through. Because once you get over that 2 or 3 day hump, worst case 5 days, but usually it's just a few days, you start feeling awesome. You feel amazing once you get through the Herxheimer, which is the detox reaction. Once you get over the hump, you feel amazing, and then you don't want to eat anything else. And it takes about 2 weeks for your taste to change. So our taste buds are just basically destroyed by so much sugar and salt that we can't even hardly taste food anymore. Like, everything we eat is either super sweet or super salty. And when you remove that sugar and salt from your diet, after about 2 weeks, your taste buds like regenerate and they become much more sensitive to flavor. And food without a bunch of sugar and salt tastes delicious. So same with oils and fat. When you take oils and fat out of your diet, at first you miss it, but then when you go back to it, you realize how greasy it is. And your lips and your mouth are so greasy when you eat something that's been cooked in oil or, even butter. Like I can't even stand to touch butter. When I touch it, it's like so greasy on your hands, you can't wash it off. Like I know some people are like, "Oh, I love butter," but I mean, it's whatever. So that was the diet. It was very simple. Like there was no variety. I ate the same thing every day, every single day. 64 ounces of juice, 2 giant salads, fruit smoothie. We did that for 90 days, and I was taking a ton of supplements, working with this naturopathic guy, and so I was taking herbal supplements and vitamin C and just really a ton of stuff. I mean, everything I could find and afford. And a lot of supplementation is very individualized. So if you're working with a practitioner, they're going to have you on specific things that they think are going to help your body the most. But like typically for cancer patients, they may have some vitamin, mineral, nutrient deficiencies, so those need to be addressed. They may need to take Parasite Cleanse, like the Dr. Hulda Clark, really famous Parasite Cleanse you can get on Amazon. It's 3 different supplements. It's a clove, wormwood, and there's a third one I forgot. Anyway, and candida can be an issue. So like, bacteria, yeast, parasites, and then immune boosting supplements like mushroom extracts, beta glucan, stuff like that. And that pretty much covers it. And things to help with detoxification, like, for example, a milk thistle for your liver. So I took a lot of stuff, and I can't say if any of it worked, no idea, right? But my approach was, it's anything but chemo, And some of the things I took may have counteracted each other. I mean, who knows, right? But I was doing everything I could find and afford, and that was my approach. It was kind of like everything but the kitchen sink. So I got to the 90-day point, and I was really, really skinny because I lost weight when I was sick. I lost weight after surgery. I lost weight when I started the raw food and juicing. And so the natural doctor recommended we add some cooked food back to my diet. So I went from 100% raw to 80% raw. So the cooked food he recommended was sweet potatoes, brown rice, quinoa, cooked starches like that. And he recommended a couple servings of animal protein because I was so thin and my body was protein wasting. So I was breaking down muscle tissue because I wasn't getting enough calories. So he said, why don't you eat 1 or 2 servings a week of wild-caught salmon or lamb? And at the time, and I was like, lamb? Like, I never eat lamb. Like, why lamb? And he said, well, lamb is the only animal that doesn't resist being slaughtered. So there's no fear hormones in lamb. I thought that was really interesting. It's also why Jesus is called the Lamb of God. So I followed his advice. I'm like, man, I just want to live. Like, before that, I thought, I guess I'm going to be raw vegan the rest of my life. But at the same time, it wasn't about animal rights for me. It was about living and health. So I trusted him, and I said, okay, whatever you say, I'll try it because I know I'm underweight. I was 130 pounds, 6'2". So, I mean, that's really skinny. I'm my normal weight, I'm still a thin guy. My normal weight's like 163 pounds, So people probably still, look at me and think, yeah, that guy's pretty thin, but I was scary thin then. So I maintained the 80-20 raw diet for years. I mean, that's basically what I did for years until I got to the 5-year mark. And over the years, I loosened up a little bit, but we did blood testing every month. We did CAT scans every 6 months for the first few years, watching my cancer markers, the oncologist I ended up working with was very concerned. I mean, he was an older man. He was in his late 70s. He had come back out of retirement because he didn't like being retired. He'd seen, he had basically a lifetime of watching cancer treatments fail people. And, he just knew the way my story was going to end. He was pretty certain it was coming back. But he didn't pressure me to do chemotherapy or anything like that. And he was very open to alternative therapies and was even studying Eastern medicine, like in his late 70s. Like he was fascinated by it. So he did vitamin C IVs for me and ordered my blood work and my CAT scans. Well, my cancer markers just stayed low because I was just pounding it every day, just putting in so much potent anti-cancer nutrition in my body, rebuilding. I was just building a new body. I mean, about every year you've got an entirely new body. I mean, many of your cells regenerate daily, but some of them take longer. I mean, if you you should smash your toenail and lose it, it's going to take a year to grow a new toenail. And your toenails are really slow, but so your bones and some of your harder components take longer. But the point is, you're building a new body every single day. Your body's a constant construction site. It's always repairing, always regenerating, and it's using the material, the raw materials that you put in your mouth. So you can literally rebuild your body in a year. And so that was, every day as I was eating, I was just thinking, I'm building a new body. I'm building a new body. Like every bite, like I'm putting in the highest quality stuff I can find, the highest quality materials, and I'm gonna get stronger and healthier. So I was talking to myself a lot. I'm healed, I'm healthy, I'm well, right? I was really, really speaking life and health into my body during the process. And so my cancer markers just stayed low. They stayed low. And then all of a sudden it was like 5 years had gone by. And I went for a 5-year scan and no cancer. And by that time, my original oncologist had retired, and I was seeing a new guy who I didn't even know, just kind of referred to him. But he was like, yeah, I think you're out of the woods now. You're at the 5-year mark, no recurrence. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And he said, what did you do? And I told him, and he was, thought it was interesting, but ultimately didn't really care. And then at the 7-year mark, I decided to go public. So that's when I started the Chris Beat Cancer website. I thought, look, I'll just start a little blog. And blogging wasn't that popular back then. It was, there weren't that many blogs, definitely not about nutrition and health and stuff. And I was like, I'll just put my story out there. Maybe it'll help some people, and maybe I won't have to tell it over and over again. Yeah, that little plan backfired. But I discovered a love for blogging, and immediately people just started coming out of the woodwork, saying, thank you so much. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And other people are saying, this is great. I did the same thing 20 years ago and healed my breast cancer or my lung cancer or whatever. And so I started meeting a lot of other survivors that had healed with nutrition and natural therapies. I'm like, well, this is awesome. I need to interview these people. Like, so, the world, if they look at my story, they think, well, maybe surgery cured him. Maybe he's just lucky or he's a fluke or whatever. And then I started finding all these other people that had healed. I'm like, I've got to share their stories too, because this is just amazing. Stories way better than mine, right? I mean, somebody heals it with no surgery. That's a better story than the guy who had surgery, right? That lends to some skepticism and doubt as to whether, what actually cured me. But the truth is, young adult colon cancer, I had a 28% chance of living 5 years. The doctor lied to me. He told me 60%, which is the average for all cancers. It's just a flat out lie. Young adult colon cancer has a very high recurrence rate. It's much more aggressive, 28% chance of living 5 years, about a 16 to 18% chance of living 10 years, which I've already blown past that. And it's more aggressive. There was on my frequently asked questions page, there's like a list of all the odds stacked against me. Why, the fact that I had it on the right side was more aggressive than if I'd had it on the left side of my colon, like all these reasons. But the point is, I know what I did worked. I know it's the reason I'm still here today. And I know if I'd done chemotherapy, I'd be dead. I had a cousin that was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And as I mentioned, I've had family members diagnosed, and his mother tried to get him to talk to me. And I even sent him an email and said, hey man, if you want to talk, here's my number, happy to talk or whatever. And he ignored it, and he ended up sending his mom an email later saying, Chris and I are just very different. I'm not into all that self-help stuff.
Wow.
And he died. Yeah, he died. He died very quickly. He had surgery, was feeling great after surgery, and then started chemo and just went downhill so fast. I mean, within weeks, it was just, he might have had the DPD enzyme deficiency. So there is a certain small percentage of people that if they take 5-FU chemotherapy and they have this DPD enzyme deficiency, it will kill them immediately. They will go downhill so fast, and die, usually within weeks or a couple months. And that was the story with him. We don't know if he had that deficiency, but it sounds like it. But anyway, yeah, I mean, that's the decision he made. And he didn't want to talk to me, and he wasn't into self-help. Didn't think he could help himself. That does kind of make me sad, because we have so much power to help ourselves. We have so much power to change our life today and our future tomorrow, right? Because the decisions we make today affect our future tomorrow. And where you are right now is the result of all the decisions you made in the past. Right? The good ones and the bad ones got you to where you are right now. So if you start making more good decisions and less bad decisions, then you will have a better future, a healthier, happier future typically. So, it's sad that a lot of people don't understand that. But again, I just focus on helping the people that want my help. And that, coming back to you and your brother, Angie, you just focus on the people that want your help. There's so much joy when you do that. And when you try to force help on someone that doesn't want it, it just leads to frustration and stress and anxiety and unhappiness. And, you just have to let it go. To let him go, right? Let him make his decisions and let him live his life. Pray for him, obviously. Be there for him. Hopefully he will, have an epiphany and become open to nutrition and taking charge of his life. But at the end of the day, we don't know the future. We just don't know. And at some point, you're just going to become a pest.
Yeah.
And and a nuisance, and it's going to strain your relationship with him a lot if you keep trying to push something on him he doesn't want.
Well, and it's actually my brother-in-law, not my brother, but
Gotcha.
So we don't. It's just harder watching the rest of the family. Like I don't. He has not ever really been in the realm of my world of natural stuff, and I understand that, and I've tried to stay back on it, and I give my sister bits and pieces here and there, and slowly I'm like, would he talk to this person, or would he talk to this person, or would he listen to this? And I get that it's his choice. It's really hard when you have information and people like you, such as yourself, that have gone through this, and I just want to say, just listen to him, just listen to his story, just talk to him, just and it's hard when people are just shut down and they're scared.
Yeah.
He's been completely scared to death by these doctors, and like you said, when he had to stop chemo to have this surgery, for them to take a big section of his colon and 25 of his lymph nodes, he was scared to stop the chemo because it was ingrained in him,
Yeah.
So back on the chemo, even though it makes him sick to death and he feels awful on it, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me or a lot of people, but.
Well, they just get brainwashed into thinking that that's their only hope.
Right.
Right? Your only hope is chemo. And when you think your only hope is chemo, then you have no other option, right, in your mind. And the truth is that's not true. The body can heal. And when you understand the causes of cancer, then you also understand the cures, right? And cure is not a word I even like to use. I mean, we're just talking about healing, right? You're sick, you got a problem, it needs to heal, your body needs to heal it. And there are some barriers in the way. Something is preventing the healing process, right? Something or things are inhibiting your body's ability to heal. And so, understanding, identifying, and eliminating those things are so critical. And colon cancer is a Western disease. The rates of colon cancer in sub-Saharan Africa are 50 times lower. 50 times lower than they are in the US and Europe and Australia. Because in sub-Saharan Africa and Uganda, the traditional diet is a high-carb, high-starch diet. Sweet potatoes, grains, rice, fruits, and vegetables. Very little meat and dairy because it's scarce. You're in the African bush, you're not eating meat every day. You're eating it once a week, couple times a month maybe, if you catch some little, muskrat, right? And so they live on starches, beans, peas, lentils, sweet potatoes, like the best stuff on earth. And starches have been demonized in the American culture. And we're all so sick because everybody's afraid of a carb. It's crazy. We're carbon-based life forms. You need carbohydrates. They're great. So, but yeah, again, like I said earlier, if you look at cancer rates around the world and you look at their diets, the interesting thing is that all the countries with the lowest cancer rates, China, Southeast Asia, South America, even Mexico has half the cancer rates of the U.S. Mexico, half the cancer rates. Just move down there and start eating Mexican food, and you've already halved your statistical chance of getting cancer, of all cancers. So the Middle East, I think I already said Africa. So all over the world, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of countries with much lower cancer rates, twice, 3 times, 5 times lower, 7 times lower, and with specific cancers, like I said, colon cancer being 50 times lower in sub-Saharan Africa. So, but what all these countries have in common is they eat plant-based diets, mostly plants, no processed food, no junk food, and very little meat and dairy. In a lot of cases, they don't have any cow's dairy at all. Like they might have some goat dairy, but cow's dairy is largely a European and American food, and in emerging countries and third world countries, cow's dairy is very scarce because cows are huge animals. They're expensive to feed. Goats are much more economical, so goats are more common. In fact, goat's milk is more consumed than cow's milk if we're talking about worldwide statistics. But the point is, they live on fruits and vegetables and starches. That's their diet. And it's a simple, humble diet. Food from the earth, right? Not a whole lot of, just not a whole lot of fanfare. They're eating to live. They're eating to survive. And in America and Europe, we're living to eat.
Yeah,
right?
And they're probably eating half what we eat too.
Yeah, I mean, right. Yeah, there's definitely because when you eat a diet that's just all starches and carbohydrates, it's naturally lower in calories. So there's some natural calorie restriction there because, the highest calorie foods are oils, which are the most dense calorie food on earth is oil, 120 calories for a tablespoon, and meat and dairy. So when you eat a lot of meat, dairy, and oils, you naturally eat a lot more calories. A tablespoon of sugar is only 45 calories. So it's almost 3 times as many calories in a tablespoon of oil. And people think sugar is the reason they're fat. It's not. It's the oils. So, you can eat a stick of butter or you can eat an entire loaf of whole grain bread. It's the same number of calories, 1,800 calories. Think about that. Or 2 sticks of butter, right? 2 sticks of butter versus a loaf of bread. What would you rather have? You can't even eat the whole loaf of bread, right?
No, that's right.
You could eat 2 sticks of butter, in one sitting, but you can't eat a whole loaf of bread. So, same number of calories. But anyway, that's just one example. Fruits and vegetables are naturally much lower in calories. They have so much fiber and starch, vitamins, minerals, enzymes, all these wonderful anti-cancer nutrients. And people ask me, where do I get my protein? You get it from plants. All plants contain amino acids. Your body assembles amino acids into the proteins you need. And elephants get their protein from plants. Gorillas get their protein from plants. Horses get their protein from plants. Like your body, even though you're not a horse or an elephant, the human body is pretty close to a gorilla's body in terms of genetics, a primate's body. And so our digestive system, our metabolism, works the same way. We can metabolize amino acids from fruits, vegetables, and make protein. So, we've just been conditioned to think like, oh, you need protein at every meal. You need a protein. And a lot of what people think are protein, which is animal meat, it has more fat than it does protein in it. So actually they're eating fat. They're eating, if we're just going to categorize it based on which macronutrient is the highest in this piece of food, a lot of animal muscle meat is more fat than protein. So, and I can talk about that all day long.
Yeah.
But
Chris, I got a question as far as I'm assuming that your doctors didn't talk to you about your adrenals or adrenal function.
Yeah, totally. My adrenals were shot. One of the first tests I had done when I was working with a naturopathic doctor is he did an adrenal profile test. And I was in adrenal failure, like adrenal exhaustion, which, as you know, when you're stressed, your body's pumping out stress hormones constantly, adrenaline and cortisol. And eventually you just exhaust your adrenals. And they go, the cycle is they're high, 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 high. And they're just, then you just kind of crash and bottom out. And it's like your adrenal gland's exhausted. It can't even like keep up with the demand. So it shuts down. So I definitely had adrenal exhaustion. From just running nonstop, being under a lot of stress, being sort of type A, entrepreneur, no boss, trying to build a business, all this stuff I was doing before I had cancer. And what's interesting was, he gave me some supplementation to support my adrenals, but ultimately it was the diet change and the lifestyle change. So the two things together. The other thing we have going in the Western world is we have way more stress than these countries where people live very simply, right? So I had an unhealthy diet, I had an unhealthy lifestyle, I wasn't exercising enough, right? I was, like most Americans, I wasn't as sedentary as most, but most Americans are very sedentary, and then I had a ton of stress. And those are the three main factors that promote most diseases like cancer: diet, lifestyle, and stress. So once I started de-stressing, once I started forgiving everyone that had ever hurt me, letting go of bitterness and resentment and negativity, and I started taking every thought captive, so I started really catching myself thinking negatively and interrupting those thoughts and choosing to think positively, then my stress came down, right? My body relaxed and things started healing. And so part of the process of healing my adrenals was, of course, the diet, but it was also removing all the stresses in my life. And that's something I help cancer patients with a lot. We're about to launch a coaching course, an online course, because I just got so overwhelmed with one-on-one coaching calls that I couldn't keep up. So I've created a course where we take them through the diet, supplements, lifestyle change, exercise, spiritual health, and removing all the stress from your life. Like, identifying all the stresses, eliminating them, and creating a peaceful, quiet life. So all of that, all those factors together promoted health and healing in my body. And cancer it's a convergence of a myriad of health-destroying factors, right? There's a bunch. They all come together at once in your life. And usually it's not like they all come together one day and now you have cancer. It's that they all come together and they persist for months and years sometimes, right? So we're eating unhealthy, we're not taking care of ourselves, we're under tons of stress, right? Our emotions are just a wreck, we're negative and unhappy, and we just are in this state of chronic destructive living, right? And sometimes it's, alcohol and drug abuse on top of all that, prescription drug use, which can promote cancer, flat out. So listen to the drug commercials. At the end of the drug commercials, they're saying, may cause certain types of cancer, So I don't think there's one way to fix yourself. Like we've been conditioned to chase after the magic bullet. And the magic bullet is a prescription drug. That's what they're selling. They're selling you a magic bullet. And so it's hard to get out of that mindset. So even if you decide, I don't want to take a prescription drug, a lot of people think, well, can I just take an herb? They just want the one thing to fix their problem. And that's not the way health and healing works, right? Health is created by a diet and a lifestyle, a total diet and lifestyle. It's not created by one little change you make. Although sometimes little changes produce big results. Like, totally. Sometimes they do. Negative, positive or negative. But I think the best approach is you got to change everything. You got to change your whole life. And for some people, it's not their diet, right? It's the stress.
It's the emotion, yeah.
It's emotions. And I can tell you, every single cancer patient has major chronic stress in their life. Every single one. I've talked to hundreds. Chronic stress is always a major factor. And some of them are like, I don't even understand. I had a super healthy diet. I exercise all the time, And then when I start talking to them about their life, it's the stress. You know, they were, going through a divorce and a lawsuit, lost their job or lost their business. I mean, just really, really catastrophic, stressful events happening in the years leading up to their diagnosis. I'm like, this is what did it. This is what completely, you were teetering on the brink of disease, and this knocked you over the cliff right here.
Right.
Or these several things.
You're going to have a perfect diet for 2 years. If your emotions aren't in line, it's really not going to help that much.
Yeah, that's right. I believe that stress accounts for 60% of health.
Now, I had a question because you mentioned exercise. So you had adrenal fatigue, you had cancer, okay? Did you use a rebounder?
I did. Oh yeah, rebounded every day.
Do you still?
Yep, love the rebounder. So the most important exercise for cancer patients, if you have no money, is walking every day, at least 30 minutes. Fresh air, sunshine, move your body. Like, you just need movement. If you can walk 2 or 3 times a day for 10 or 15 minutes, right, and add up to 30 or 45 or an hour throughout the day, that's amazing. Jumping on a rebounder is wonderful. It circulates your blood, circulates your lymph system. Like, it gets you sweating. I mean, rebounders are great, especially for someone that has a hard time doing high-impact aerobic activity. The rebounder is amazing. So, yeah, huge fan of rebounders and trampolines in general. But then I'm, going to the gym. I mean, all movement is life. All movement sends signals to your body to get stronger, to live, to repair, to regenerate, to be stronger. And so whether it's yoga or rock climbing or riding your bicycle or karate, or jazzercise, like, it's all good. Like, so I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter what you do, just find something, like whatever it is you like doing the most, that's exercise, do that.
That's at the level you're at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're in a weakened state, then your body can't handle very much. Like, I remember when I would first try to go back to the gym, I'd go like 2 or 3 days, and then I'd get sick. After 2 or 3 days of going to the gym, because my body was so weak and my adrenals were so shot that what I wouldn't even consider to be extreme exercise, just some heavy weightlifting. But my body was in such a weak and vulnerable state that just that little bit of intense, I wouldn't even call it intense, but anyway, heavy weightlifting, just suppressed my immune system. Plus, gyms are just so germy anyway, We call it the germ. That's sort of our joke. We're going to the germ. But,
well, and when talking about the exercise, I know for some, and for me personally, and I don't know if it's just because I've had more kidney issue, but even getting on the rebounder, I had more issue because it would push lymph and it had nowhere to go. Like, my kidneys just couldn't keep up. And so it wouldn't matter. I still have a hard time personally with that myself.
Rebounder?
Yes, and really much of any activity. I went on my first walk on this past Saturday, and I could definitely feel it. So, but I've been working on my kidneys were in failure, so it's been more of a tough road with that. And I know some people just, they say they try and they feel worse. I think it has a lot more to do with our personal, other things that are going on too.
There's some fascinating research that I think I want to encourage you to look at. Dr. Walter Kempner, who was at Duke University Hospital for about 40 years, he created the rice diet. And it was basically on a dare. I mean, this is a brilliant man who came over from Germany. And basically on a dare, he was at Duke and he was criticizing the kidney doctors and saying, you don't know what you're doing. Like, I could cure kidney, in a matter of weeks or months. No problem. And they're like, oh, yeah, really? Okay, why don't you go ahead and do that? And so he did. He started taking patients. He created the rice diet. He put them on a diet of rice and fruit. Rice and fruit. No sodium, no animal protein, just rice and fruit. And had remarkable results and ran this program for 40 years at Duke. And it was a live-in program. Patients would come in with, kidney failure, obesity, all these problems, heart disease, put them on rice and fruit. Reversed it. Google a rice diet.
I will.
It's Dr. Walter Kempner. There's books about it. There's interviews with some of the doctors that worked with him. Dr. John McDougall is the first one that I heard about, that I learned about it from, because he talked about it in a lecture. But yeah, it's amazing. I mean, completely reverse kidney disease over and over and over again with people, putting them on a diet that would be considered crazy by most people, right? What about all the sugar, right? Rice and fruit. I mean, China, they've lived on rice and fruit, white rice and fruit for, thousands of years. So, but it's interesting though too, because he excluded vegetables because of the sodium. So even the sodium content, because sodium is so toxic for your kidneys, and so is protein, high amounts of protein. So it really aggravates existing kidney disease. But anyway, so that is something maybe you could look into that might be really helpful, worth trying.
Thank you.
Won't cost you anything, that's for sure.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think we're coming up. We're at our hour or more here. But, I think we could go on and listen to you for a long time, Chris.
Thank you. Well, once I get going, it's hard to stop.
Awesome information, though. It really is, and it's great to see everything that you're doing now, and that's phenomenal. You're helping hundreds and thousands of people, no doubt. So
it's crazy. It's gotten up to the site had 1 million visitors last year.
Wow.
So that's exciting. I mean, it's really exciting. Obviously, I want to keep growing. So just keep doing what I'm doing. We'll see. This year it's going to be more than 1 million.
So the giant cancer
fighting salad.
Yes.
Yeah.
And your video you had, first things cancer.
What every cancer patient needs to know, which is if someone goes to chrisbeatcancer.com, they'll see it on the homepage. It's just right there on the front.
For us to share with our groups?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an 11-minute video. I created it to be the video that anyone who had cancer or that knows somebody with cancer could share with them. And again, it's 11 minutes of me just like giving them just the straight talk, right? Just what they need to know, what I've learned. And a lot of it has to do with just attitude and perspective and not getting rushed into things, right? Not letting doctors or people around you rush you into doing something that you don't feel good about, right? And listening to your instincts and intuition. So, yeah, I'm very, very proud of that little video. And I made it, several years ago. My hair is different, whatever. But it's not worth redoing. It's just really great. I mean, to me, it's really great the way it is. And enormous amounts of feedback from it, from people saying this really helped me a lot. So, yeah, feel free to share it.
My hair is different from the last one. But
you had a buzz cut last week?
Yeah. Well, I usually wear it in a ponytail and I shave. But so, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, chrisbeatcancer.com is where they can find me. I'm also on Facebook, Twitter. You have a YouTube channel, Instagram. It's Chris Beat Cancer. You'll find me if you're looking for me on most social media networks, depending on whichever ones are your favorite. Please don't follow me on all of them. That would just probably get annoying for you. But follow me on your favorites. Or the best thing really is just subscribe to my email newsletter. When they go to chrisbeatcancer.com, they'll see a subscribe option. And that's where really I share the most valuable content. I also have a free guide for cancer patients called 20 Questions for Your Oncologist, where we assembled the best questions that a cancer patient absolutely has to ask before they say yes to treatment. And the biggest challenge is cancer patients don't know what to ask. They don't know anything, right? So they ask very few questions, and they ask the wrong questions. They ask stuff like, is this going to make me sick? Or how long do I have to do this treatment? And there are some very specific questions. It's really more than 20, but we call it 20 questions. It's an audio program with a transcription and a question list. It's just free. Just go to the website. You'll see a link to it right on the front page. Just opt in and let me send it to you. And you can share it with your loved ones or whoever. But yeah, if you ask the right questions, you're going to get some answers that you did not expect. And those answers will have a very profound impact on the decisions you make going forward as a patient or as a caregiver of a patient. So, I mean, the truth is, doctors like to leave out a lot of the facts that are, make the treatments not look very good. They like to just sort of dance around the truth and just tell you have to do it, but they're really not telling you survival rates, effectiveness rates, recurrence rates. There's very specific things you need to know before you say yes. So anyway, that's one of the best resources I've put out there for patients.
It's weird because people give their power over to the doctor because they don't know what to ask. So that is great that you do that.
Yeah.
You really need to know what you're doing when you go in there, because it's a life-threatening situation, and you want to make sure that if you're yourself personally, you're making the right choice.
Yeah, this is your life. I mean, if you have cancer, this is your life. I mean, the buck stops with you, and you can't blame anyone else. And, it really is foolish to just go in blind. And, I mean, again, I'm not trying to call people fools, but it is foolish to make such a huge commitment and decision to these type of treatments and therapies that have innumerable consequences and risks without knowing what those consequences and risks are.
Absolutely.
So anyway, we just want to empower people with knowledge. Like you said, give people back their power. Knowledge is power. It's a cliche, but it's the truth. The more you know, the smarter you are, and that enables you to make wise, well-reasoned, rational decisions. And nobody needs that more than a cancer patient.
Very true. Very true.
Yep.
Thank you so much for being here with us, Chris.
You're welcome. This was fun.
Yes.
Thank you again for the opportunity to share my story and speak to your audience.
Yes,
and we love it because, like you said, when you started, there was nothing on the internet.
Yeah.
And now there are a lot of things. Some aren't so good, and some are awesome like this, because this is powerful. You lived it, you've reversed it, and kept it away long enough that, and like your 5 family members, it's like you reversed it, and they still don't get it.
Yeah, no, that's true. I know.
That's
just the frustration that I have to live with.
Yeah, my
Just again, focus on helping the people that want my help, and I don't worry about the rest.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you for being here, and if you would do another video in the future, we'd love to have you back.
Cool.
All right. So we will talk to you later.
Okay. Thanks, Angie. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
So, sorry guys for losing it here on this one, but this one was pretty close to home, and I didn't even know it was going to be. So, anyway, he had phenomenal information, and, granted, we're not all struggling with cancer, but I know that there are probably plenty of people in group also dealing with this, or family members, that information can definitely help them, or them to offer it to them. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that don't have cancer, but they're worried about getting it.
Yeah.
And this will help them too, because diet is everything.
Exactly.
Positive mantras, and you don't need to apologize for what happened. It's just it's life. It's life in this lane. We're going to keep bumping into our emotions as we have new guests on, because this is a heartfelt subject. Not just this one, but adrenal fatigue. All of it is very emotional, and there are probably many people in our audience that are watching these videos that are having a hard time listening to the information too, because they're emotionally invested. So never apologize for that. Okay?
All right. Well, we need to finish this up today before I am a complete mess. So, where can they find us at, Gary? And,
What
I don't remember what I was going to say.
What did you just say?
I said, where can they find us?
Oh, they can find us at LivefoodDtox, and they can ask us questions at LivefoodDtox@gmail.com,
Correct.
and YouTube at LivefoodDtox, and
Great.
Facebook at LivefoodDtox. I think I covered all that before, but I didn't put in Facebook and YouTube.
Yes. Well, it's kind of strange seeing you like this mountain man, but it's a good look on you. I like it.
Thanks.
So
Thanks.
we'll definitely. I know I'm excited to hear about your trip, and I know that many in the group are excited too. So as soon as you can, we're gonna get information from you on that as well.
Yeah, we'll do the story, and I'll just start from like the beginning right through to current, and
Sounds
I'll try to do it in less than 4 hours.
Okay, great. We may have to cut that one in a couple days, but we'll do it no matter what.
All right.
All right, guys. Well, it's St. Patty's Day, so happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, I had green tea today.
Green. I got my green on, so yeah, a little bit of green, a little bit of St. Patty's fun. So we love you guys and keep going.
All right. Love you. Talk to you later.
Love you too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Guys.